if things are not going well, then it's your job to be, as a leader, it's your job to be the shield. You're there to deflect the blow. You're there to take the first strike, and then, try to figure out how you're going to work to fix things behind. But I mean, ultimately, I think a good leader recognizes that when it doesn't work out, it's your fault. Welcome back to Off the Wire, and this week we're changing gears a little bit. Anthony and I are about to get a little philosophical, which sounds a little scary, but I think we're going to land the plane pretty well. We've been talking a little bit. We talked last episode about business continuity plans, and the last few episodes we've had a little bit of a mix of technology things versus kind of people things. And this is one of those episodes where we're going to talk a little bit about the people side. And this is actually going to be a series. We have at least a part 1 and part 2. We'll see. We may actually end up with a little bit of a part 3. But we're going to talk a little bit tonight about leading people and some of the tips that we have seen or been told or have learned from mentors or just through experience that are really shaping how we try to lead and what we like to see in leaders that are leading us. From things we might have learned from mentors or from leaders that we have currently, or leaders that we have worked for in the past. So, Anthony, as IT folks, so much of our focus is on the technology, right? I even think about this. There was a conference that I went to last year. Actually, take that back. It was 2 years ago. And there was all these technology sessions, and it was mostly people that are in the IT field. A lot of technology sessions, super well attended. And I remember all of them like standing room only, various things. What are we going to do with VMware, cybersecurity sessions? And there were several sessions on the last day. I think it was 2 maybe, and they were about people. And it was the least attended session of the whole conference that I went to. I hear a lot where people, either in leadership roles or in non-leadership roles, they sometimes gripe about people within the company and relationships within the company, the role that they have as leaders within the team. But I see a lot of IT leaders, especially, focusing more on the technical things. So I think we're going to try to talk about those other things a little bit tonight. What do you think that is? Why do you think it is we spend so much time just so focused in on technical things?
I don't know, but all I heard is this is going to be our least listened to show based off of what you said.
And maybe so. So if you're out there and you're the people that didn't attend that session, please keep listening.
I'm going to take a stab at guessing that, and I will say I think it's likely because the further you go back, the more IT didn't have a seat at the table, and on top of that, there's a whole lot more one-person IT shops compared to what they're still out there. Don't get me wrong, but if you go back 10 years ago, I know you were saying 2 years ago, but if you go back 10 years ago, there's a drastic difference. The teams have went from 1 to 3 people, from 4 to 5 to now they're like at 8. And you're finding a lot more IT folks that are either at that VP level or that C level versus just being an IT manager or an IT director. Because I feel like I see, like, probably the last year and this year, that I see those events are pretty well attended. Talking about that, do
Mm-hmm.
you disagree with that, or?
Yeah, I definitely say better attended.
Yeah,
But I think you bring up a great point. Um, Maybe we're just new to this, that we just haven't had, our focus has been more of a technical role and less in that leadership role. And I don't know if you mentioned this or not, but we've also had a lot of turnover due to natural retirements and stuff.
yeah,
People probably, maybe there were people in those roles for long periods of times. Maybe they felt like they had that experience. And now we're seeing a lot of brand new leaders
yeah. I can
hop
100%.
in.
I can 100% see that. One thing I will say, I would say within the last 5 years, I've seen more people come from IT to be the CEO at companies than
Mm,
ever, all the years combined. And I'll
yeah.
tell you what, all those people are excellent at leading people. So
Hmm.
I do think it is very important for us that are looking to progress or just be better, honestly, just be better at our job to focus on the people, which hopefully some of this will help with that.
In your mind, we kind of came up with some just topics to riff off of here. Is there something that, like when you're leading people, is there a tip or a principle or something like that that you have found that you feel like it's just the most important? Or is it just a bunch of different things that like all equally kind of roll up into being a good leader?
I think it's just a bunch of different things. I do want to start us off with one, and just because it is probably one of the most recent things that I have learned from. And you mentioned learning from good leaders and all that. I learned from making the mistake. Anyways, the quite the way to learn them, not the best way, but the first one, and like I said, I really don't think there's one that's more important than the other. Overall, I think it really just you really got to have all these things to some degree to really be a strong team. But the first one, and it's I don't know about when I learned it, probably about maybe 5 years ago, if I had to take a guess at it, and that is the golden rule is not great to apply at work. You don't want to treat all the people in your team the way you want to be treated. You actually want to treat them how they want to be treated. Or another thing that I've seen, like I would try to treat everybody the same, and that doesn't work. And maybe it was where I only managed like a couple people before and didn't have so many people underneath me, but I tried that and it was failing hard. People are all different. We all learn different ways and we think differently. Trying to treat everybody the same does not work out well for you.
So I know, we podcast is not about getting into extremely situations, especially when it comes to people. But is there some sort of example where you could kind of, at least show how one person responding versus person responding and why you had to do something differently in each case?
Some people, they just want a general direction and that's all they want. That's what they prefer, that general direction, and that's it. And like very little feedback, very little input. They kind of want to be left alone. And then there's some people where they want a lot more direction. I'm not saying like micromanage, but they say they get done with a task. They want to know what you feel is the most important task to pick up next after that.
Hmm.
And that's something like of the folks that I work with on our IT department, like that varies greatly, and how people prefer that. And that's another thing. Like I have a hard time because I know how I want things, and that it's hard for me to think about people being different with that. It's really just putting yourself in their shoes. But there's people like things differently, as far as like assigning workload, and then there's
Hmm.
also just like the training. Like some people, they prefer a book and just the time and the place to study, and some people they want to do learn as they do. Anyways, just remember, not everyone's like you, and honestly, that is a great thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Actually, so I got a question and a counterpoint. So we'll start with the question. How do you figure that out? How do you figure out how people want to be? Is this like a something you just kind of you feel it out and you figure it out as you go along? And you said you made some mistakes, or do you just go up to someone and say, "Hey, how do you want to be treated?"
it is communications how you find that out. I couldn't give you the specifics on some of the recent examples, but it's really just talking to the person and it's listening to the individuals. Like you really got to listen to people. Sometimes people aren't direct, but they'll give these little hints, and if you actually pay attention closely, like you can figure those things out. And I am terrible at reading people. It's one of the worst traits I have. I can't read anybody. Everyone can read me, but I can't read people very well. So I have to really focus in on that and try to put two and two together. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's good just to have that frank conversation. But you really got to listen to those little nuances and details, especially if they keep repeating themselves. Someone's trying to tell you something.
Is it wrong though? I mean, is it wrong to have that conversation? Like, let's say you're a leader. I mean, right? If it's maybe a performance review, is it wrong to say, "Hey, I want to better lead you. Like, is there something I can better do? Is there a way I can better do something?" Is it, faux pas, I guess, to bring that up in that kind of space?
No, actually, it would be preferable. It was just me of making a few years mistake and finally understanding what I was being told and just not really grasping it. And we've since had great conversations I've had with some of these folks trying to understand what they're looking for. And it's better to have those upfront conversations.
Okay.
And since I've learned my lesson, like, we had a new hire and we've had those discussions right off the bat, so it's better to just shake it out at the very beginning of a relationship if you can.
Okay. So my counterpoint is I understand don't treat everyone, you know, exactly the same, but how do you have like an overall, I guess, range of treatment that you kind of operate in? Obviously, you can't get too far. It's like one person's like, I only work best if I work from home or outside on the picnic tables.
Yeah,
You're like, how do you like, where do you kind of, is there a way to like kind of draw a dotted line around like kind of
yeah,
the variables of how you're treating people?
and I'm kind of talking about at a higher level, but that's just a kind of another topic, and that's just if you've got boundaries, like you need to communicate those, and don't expect people to read your mind and
Yeah.
understand what your boundaries are. Like you really need to be clear at that,
Yeah.
like up
Well,
front.
like let me narrow, I guess. You talked about someone needing a lot more direction, someone needing a lot less direction. I guess I find myself feeling that, you know, everyone needs to have a lot more of their own direction just because of maybe, the amount of resources we have, right? We're kind of stretched a bit. And if we're stretched and I'm having to, take time to, I guess, give a lot more guidance, then I'm kind of falling behind, right? So,
Yeah.
how would you, I guess, handle that? Is it just this? It doesn't matter. You still got to take that extra time, as a leader, or do you, somehow have a boundary, I guess, of that?
Yeah, I really don't wanna say that it's a hard, fast rule one way or the other. It's all
Okay.
scenario based. But for my instance, I think it's not like telling someone day in and day out what they all have to do.
Gotcha. So a little
It's
more
just
subtle is what you're saying.
yeah, it's like, we have a million different lists of things that we wanna do, and
Okay.
it's just say, maybe like put a numerical order, and there's always that in between work that all IT
Yeah.
people have, and give them either a list or communicate it. And what we've found is really just we're already having meetings, and just try to address it during our reoccurring meetings,
Okay.
as we have them.
One thing I know we wanted to bring up is that I think we both have had, failures maybe in this, or at the very least, could have done better, is making sure you're very clear, right? That like hard conversations are something that you bring up, early on. So I have an example, and I think you even mentioned it. We were kind of looking at the show notes, but basically, I waited for a performance review to bring up a particular topic. Wasn't it wasn't really like a horrible, horrible thing, right? It was just something that's like, I had seen kind of maybe something that wanted to see if we could try to avoid it. Like not a major performance thing, just something minor. Well, we got to the performance review, and I was bringing it up, and I had some notes, and the other person couldn't remember it happening. Because it had been like 4 months ago, and honestly, I was getting a little fuzzy on the details. So talk through that. I mean, if you've seen something similar, and why, like, being clear and kind of saying when things aren't working well quickly, I guess, is the best tactic there.
Yeah, just to touch on things being fuzzy, you need to say things 3 times, 3 different ways for people
Hmm.
to really get it, and that's what we're. I depends on the importance level of things, but if you've got some hard, fast rules, it's probably good to repeat those over and over time. Not like,
Hmm.
every week, every day, or anything like that, but, maybe several times a year if something's that important. And as far as things being in a review, that is like a hard, fast rule to me. And right or wrong, I've had some things that needed addressed, and their review was coming up, and honestly, it was on me. Like, I should have brought it up before. I procrastinated, didn't do it. And I'm not saying this is the right. I am not saying this is the right thing to do, but I chose not to bring it up in the review. And then a few weeks later, like I basically after that, I was like, I'm putting something in the calendar. We're gonna have this conversation, afterwards, and just make it clear going forward with that. Depends on the importance level. If someone's doing something that's either unsafe or dangerous or, severely impacting the team, you just need to drop everything and do it on the spot. This was just like a little thing that over time was nagging at me, and
Hmm.
but I should have brought it up before. And I definitely don't like throwing something at someone the very first time in a review. And if it were to happen to me, like I would be upset. So to me, I put the ownership on. It's my fault because I didn't bring it up before. I don't know. What do you think about that, Tanner? It's a little,
Yeah, no, I would agree. I feel like I have learned that if something happens, I'm not going to go into crazy detail just because of the public, nature of the podcast, but we had a meeting. Someone made a comment in a meeting that really didn't sit well and wasn't, I would say, it wasn't in the spirit of coming up with a solution. It was in the spirit of just like saying, like, no, like that's just not going to work. And that was the kind of thing that obviously didn't address it in the meeting. But that was the thing I addressed right then. It's like, hey, we had this thing. This is why we, and we should put this as like a part B of this. Being clear is very kind, but also like making sure that the why is there. That it's not just because I said so or because this is the rule we have or that there's a why. And there probably is a why to all those rules that you talked about. But yeah, I have found it's better. And I would say it's better for me too. Like when I'm being coached on something, I much prefer to know right away because I'm a big like, if something's not going right, I want you to let me know so I can correct it. Um, I don't want to have to like, feel like it kind of, I guess an example of this would be like picking up a room, right? If you make a mess, when you're a kid and you throw out every toy, it's a lot easier to pick up if you just have to pick up one thing at a time as you bring one thing out versus like if you wait for like a week and then clean your room, it kind of seems overwhelming. So I would rather a leader come to me right in the moment, like, hey, this thing happened. Can we not do that? And so I can go ahead and clear that up so I don't get to 6 months or a year down the road to the review and then feel like I have hours of cleanup to do, if that
yeah,
makes sense. So maybe thinking about it from the other side. And then one other thing I would say is I do agree with the saying the important things multiple times. So an example of that for us is we do not every single month, but I would say most months of the year, we do a little training as a group. Usually one of the other members of the group kind of leads the training. But one we always do every single year is customer service and why we do what we do and what's our expectation for
yeah.
good customer service. So to your point, like that's an annual thing because that's such a big part of what we do. So this is an interesting one. I saw it on the list and I was curious your thoughts or about how I know this is one of the ones you came up with was I think you said basically you need to tell people where you're pointing. So what do you mean by that?
Whether you have a formal vision or not for your department, like you inherently have a vision of what you expect for the department. And I think it's important for everyone to know that and to hear it, from time to time, to know what, the general direction of the department. For like the vision, like for us, we're not like my thing is we're not just the IT department. We're not just there to fix issues and stand up new servers. We're there to enhance the company, to enhance processes, to streamline roles, to help automate things. Like we're there to basically make sure every person at the company is more empowered and more capable
Mm.
through the use of technology. And that's something that we bring up time and time again in our discussions. And it's really kind of like a primary focus for our department.
So I like that concept, and I had an additional question to kind of see what your thoughts were on this. Obviously, as leaders, especially at like an executive level, a big part of what we do is to figure out kind of like what is our next year strategy, next year initiatives, and then potentially out even to multiple years, 2 years, 3 years, things like that. So you have how do you balance that, right? How do you balance like what you've planned to do versus like to your point, if we're there to create value, sometimes value is going to just like kind of pop up from time to time. So
Yeah.
is there how do you I guess keep kind of a long-term vision in line, but also allow folks to create value in unique ways as things pop up?
I think it's really just giving people goals. There's like your standard goals and then maybe like a stretch goal, something like that, where like I'm not gonna ding them necessarily, but we should shoot for, improving 2 business processes every 6 months, or maybe it's 2 business processes a year. If you enhance 2 business processes a year over, 5 years, that's actually quite a bit.
Mm,
But
yeah.
I guess for that, and I'm sure there's a million different ways, but I don't do it for everyone all the time. But I occasionally I like giving everyone goals, but sometimes I like to do stretch goals for folks when I feel like they've
Okay.
got the capability of doing it.
I like it. So one of the things I know you had on your list, I had it on my list, and one that I feel extremely strongly about. I'm curious your thoughts too, but and that's and well, and then there's a part two of this that I struggle with. So I hope you have some good tips on this. But I think part one of this is, or really the whole, you could call it shepherding. Shepherding the team as a group. Part one of it, I feel really strongly about it, and that's the protecting the team from the company, if that makes sense. Not necessarily from but from, like, I guess, failure. If things are not going well, then it's your job to be, as a leader, it's your job to be the shield. You're there to deflect the blow. You're there to take the first strike, and then try to figure out how you're going to work to fix things behind. But I mean, ultimately, I think a good leader recognizes that when it doesn't work out, it's your fault.
Hmm.
Um, for whatever reason. So what do you feel about that? And then we'll work on the part two of the shepherding thing.
My thing, it's not just saying it, but if there's a failure in our department, it kind of is on us. You know what I mean? So I just kind of believe that. And you mentioned it before, so I'm kind of just regurgitating what we talked about before. But when there's a win, it's not Anthony, and honestly, it really isn't Anthony that did the win.
Yeah.
It's one of the people on the team. So, and anyways, I just think it's important to. It's not even just saying it; it's honestly believing it. Because that really kind of it'll be transparent if you don't think that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. The stuff we get done, I feel strongly that a majority of our wins are from some really awesome individuals on the team, and they deserve so much praise. And if you're a leader, you really need to uplift people. Sometimes, and this kind of goes back, I think, a little bit to your interchangeable to, like, uplift them in the way they like it, right? Some people would, like, rather you take them to lunch and just have a private conversation about, like, how proud you are that this went well, and, like, how surprised you are about, like, just it was just the results were just not something you even could have fathomed. And some people want that in front of the team in a meeting. Some people want that in front of the company. And I think figuring out how people want to be rewarded, and how to deliver that good news is a good thing. But then also, like I said earlier, if it doesn't work out, it's on you, right? You're the sponge. You're supposed to soak that up.
One thing I do want to add on that is everyone's heard the phrase that IT is a thankless job, and with that, knowing that, it's one of those things where if your people are, doing awesome things, doing awesome projects and accomplishing or whatever they're accomplishing, if you don't showcase that to people, like it makes it more of a thankless job. Like you need to
Mm,
showcase and get people recognized for the accomplishments that they do because that's one of those things where they can do a lot of awesome things and it is completely transparent to the end user. And, they are like, what is IT doing? They got all these people. Like, what are they doing? And I think
yeah.
it's important to kind of showcase that stuff.
So I got a question on that because I find this in my personal life a little bit as well, just family conversation. So, um, sometimes I feel like other departments have a tough time understanding what we're doing.
Yes.
So, how do you get the company to recognize the efforts of someone if they don't know what they were doing?
Uh, so for that, really, you just need to communicate in a way that people understand you, especially if you're talking to the leaders, if you're talking to the board of directors, if you're talking to the CEO or the senior leadership of the organization. But I think a lot of that though is really just crafting whatever it is and kind of turning it into a story of some sorts. Uh, Not like a
Yeah.
fictitious story, but something that they can relate to and understand.
The next one that I had on here that I'm a really big proponent of this, and I think it goes to, you talked about, making sure that the people on the team and the team is doing a lot of, like, the big, things that are happening and getting done, achievements. Get out of the way of the team. I think a lot of leaders, they feel like they've got to be this, like, kind of mouthpiece or this center point, or the person who's delivering all the news, like kind of let people stand on their own, right? And get out of their way if they, if they don't need, it's not that we as leaders are doing nothing, right? We're just kind of sitting there, but if they don't need a direction, if they don't need, an advice on something or some, then just let them go, and making sure that, you're hiring really, really good people that in some ways are a lot smarter than you. I think that's tough for leaders. A lot of times it's intimidating. If you feel like someone is a lot more intelligent than you, then, you're like, well, they're going to somehow look at me and say, like, what am I doing here? Right. But I think that is a struggle that a lot of leaders have. And because of that, their team effectiveness is actually lessened because they're not willing to like have someone in there to maybe challenge ideals, maybe come up with better solutions, or maybe just be really, really smart in a particular category. And I find that there's probably a category or two that every member of the team has that they're better at than I am. And I like it that way because, man, it does take some of the pressure off. I don't understand how people it seems like it would just be a huge amount of pressure to feel like you were the one that had to come up with everything.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm almost giggling just thinking about this. This is one where, well, one just literally last week, Stacy. Hopefully, she's not listening to this, but and it's not that I'm trying to get in her way. Like, I just want to make sure she feels supported sometimes. So, like, I'll offer to like go do things with her, and I was like, I am of no benefit to this. I said, you got it. And sometimes I just see that look in her eye. I'm like, you've got this. I was like, I just want you to know that I'm there for you if you need something. And anyways, and another thing I've noticed, I swear the last few times I've taken off like a week from work, the folks accomplish so much. And I'm like, I need to take off more time because you guys are like, I don't know what
It's
happens.
things are a lot faster when I'm not
Well,
here.
they do, and I joke, maybe I'm not doing a good job. You're like, yeah, because we don't have to deal with you. That's why we got all this stuff.
Yeah. No, it is true. I think your team is better enhanced by having people as smarter than you on it and different viewpoints too. And I think we even talked about that a little bit. There was an episode where we talked about how to like hire the right people. I think we mentioned that. So it's really critical. So we had three more here on our list, and you had some really really good ideas on this. So I want you to kind of take the lead on this. But we both had this on our list, and it was really talking about not asking people to do things you wouldn't do. So like, uh, you know, how do you do that? I mean, how is it something that's particular, or is it you just look for ways, or
I think this is just something that I picked up from the military. The best leaders I had in the military and the Marines were those that would lead by example. They're up there at the front of the charge, and I think it's kind of just doing that in some ways. It's not, as if you're a senior leader, obviously you can't be doing tasks day in and day out. That's not your job, and that you won't be able to see like the big picture if you're doing that. But it is important, I think, to on occasion jump in, get your hands dirty, just last week. And honestly, sometimes it's a good break from things. Like sometimes my brain is just not working. And honestly, physical labor is probably just you're not going to get much out of me mentally anymore for the day. And doing something physically works out. So, just like the other example, I was working with a help desk person and we're, working, putting a new workstation in. I know I have no business, helping someone put a new workstation in, but it was the end of the day. I was burnt out. And then it shows I'm willing to pitch in, as needed. And this isn't something like he's not doing something that I would never do. I've done it a
mm-hmm.
million times in the past. I just think it's important, whether it's, just occasionally, just the folks seeing you, not afraid to pitch in, like that means a lot to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. If you have opportunity to do it, and I think it extends past your job role too. Um, sometimes we're asked to do things. So we joke sometimes that if it plugs in, it belongs to IT. you know,
It does.
uh, and so sometimes that means like doing something that's not, you know, typically something we would do. And I think kind of stepping in there if you have an opportunity to kind of do that and kind of be the first one on there, or even I always remember one of our senior staff meetings. There was a guy. There was a story brought up. There was a guy who was being considered for a leadership role, and One of the senior staff members saw him, and I think I might have shared this story before, but saw him walk out of the parking lot one day, and there was a cardboard box that kind of flew out of the dumpster, and it was just kind of trucking through the parking lot. And that's not, his job to clean the parking lot, right? And he saw it kind of rolling through the parking lot, and he went, grabbed it, took it over, put it in the cardboard dumpster. Nobody saw it. It was after hours. There was only like three people left in the building. She happened to see it, but and how much of an impact that made on her about his character. So I think when you have opportunity, kind of do something a little out of your comfort zone, or something that you don't typically do. To your point, I think that's kind of that. Given that example, so we talked a little bit about recognition, kind of generally, but we wanted to have maybe some specifics in here too, because I think we both thought it was like such an important thing that we almost, kind of to go to your earlier thing, say it more than one time, different ways.
Yeah.
With recognition being such an important thing, we talked about that, and making sure we're kind of passing that credit along to the people that are deserving of it. Is there any like particulars or any structure to the like how you recognize people?
Yeah. This is actually one thing I am going to hold to the chest. I'm not going to kind of go into some of the specific ways I do, but I think the important thing is one that you actually mean it. I think, you know, that matters more than anything. Like if you're not
Mm-hmm.
genuine about that and you're say, if you're just saying, "Hey, I appreciate you," like that all the time, that gets one that gets annoying. But just be genuine and in the moment when you're giving that.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking to them, I do a few things, that I think my folks know that I truly appreciate them. During certain moments, don't you can't do it all the time, but try to do things like that when I can. And it's just the main thing is be in the moment when you're communicating with them and be genuine, or it's meaningless. As a matter of fact, if anything, it might hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would agree with that. And I think trying, the only thing I would maybe add to that, and if there's anything specific, is I try to actually find something for every single person. Like, because I think sometimes it just, it's just the nature of it that maybe particular position, just like kind of comes under the, let's say, the company eye more often. You've talked about thankless jobs sometimes, and then maybe it's a network person, where they're just kind of behind the scenes. No matter what they do, it's probably not going to be like super flashy. Just making sure you kind of find something in everyone,
Yeah,
because you don't like leave someone out because it wasn't something that kind of the company recognized or something like that. So, but I agree with you about it being genuine. Um, and I think to your point, I think that I would say if you can do something, if you can do something that shows personal sacrifice, I think that means something too. And I'm not gonna say specifics on anything, but I think if you can do something that people know required some either time or resources from your own, from your own bucket, so to speak, I think that means a lot too. It means a lot to me.
yeah.
So I know it means a lot to others too.
That's a good point. And actually, as we're speaking right now, I'm just thinking of someone that I'm going to owe, or I feel like I owe them. Chad is actually probably still out right now on a fiber cut dealing with it. He's been out there all day.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a lot. And I think this goes also back to that original thing with people aren't interchangeable. It's like, it might mean something different to each person. As we close up here, Anthony, we had one small one. It's very important, but it's really not really complicated. So I think it's something we can cover quickly. And that's something that means a lot to me. And I really don't know where I heard this, but um, I heard a cup analogy. We as leaders, and this applies to a team, it also applies to a company, that we as leaders are replenishing the cup, right? Those words of affirmation, the recognition, the making sure that people are getting credit, those are all replenishing the cup. And then periodically we have to withdraw from the cup. Like you just mentioned that situation of someone having to work on a weekend. So I'm a big proponent of making sure that you keep the cup full. And this can also go for the company as well. As we finish up and we give our final thoughts, what do you think about that? And is there anything else that you want to leave the listeners with?
really, I hate to say it, I'm going to backtrack. This actually might be one of the more important items really on the list. And That's what when we talked about, at the beginning, having hard conversations. Well, if you're doing right by that person, they're more likely to basically own whatever that discussion's about or hear you out on that. If they feel like, if you're always doing the right thing, putting your best step forward or filling that cup, over time, but if they don't respect you and feel like you're not doing, right, like, how likely are they to listen to you? That can go in so many different directions,
Mm,
to make sure that you're replenishing that cup, because you're going to have things, whether you're going to ask from people that they don't want to do or, whatever. And it's important to have that.
so that wraps us up. Anthony, really good episode. I enjoyed it. The time has flown by. Um, for those that are listening, we're going to have a part two. This one focused on teams. We're going to focus more on individual, like personal, I guess, internal leadership skills and lessons that we've learned over the years. So definitely stay tuned for that. And the best way to figure that out is to be subscribed or follow our show in whatever platform you're listening to it. There's also typically a way in every platform to make sure notifications are on so that you're notified when a new one comes out. And we also want to hear from you. We love to get feedback. We love to get ideas from the listeners. So if you have something that you want us to cover, we have it covered. Or you just want to send us a note for whatever reason with some feedback, we'd be happy to hear it. This show is yours as much as it is ours, and we do it for you. And so any feedback you have really, really, really helps us out. So, Anthony, any final notes before we wrap up?
I think we're good.
All right. Well, until next time, this has been an episode of Off the Wire.
Thank you, everyone. Bef-